I didn't marry him because I loved him. I married him because I was terrified no one else ever would. That's it. That's the sentence I've never said out loud. Not to him, not to anyone. There was no great romance, no sudden pull toward his soul, no sleepless nights filled with longing. There was just time passing, friends getting engaged, parents dropping quiet hints that sharpened with each birthday, and me sitting in a small apartment with good lighting and too many unread books, realizing that my life was growing still. He was kind, reliable, said all the right things at the right moments, and I told myself that was enough, that love could come later or grow quietly in the routines we'd build. I convinced myself that choosing someone who chose me back openly, eagerly, was a kind of love. And maybe it is for some people, but not for me. For me, it was fear wearing a polite smile. Every time I looked at him, I saw safety, not spark, not hunger, just the steady, quiet comfort of not being alone. I clung to that like it would anchor me. I ignored the silence in my chest, mistaking it for calm. And when he proposed, nervous, sweet, hopeful, I nodded before I even fully heard the question. I think I knew even then, not clearly, but somewhere under the noise of expectations and timelines and checklists, I knew. I just didn't let myself listen, because the alternative, the echo of a future where I came home to no one, where I aged without being witnessed, that terrified me more than a life without passion. So I chose companionship over connection. I said yes to the absence of loneliness, even if it meant the absence of something deeper. And I smiled in the photos. I smiled so well. He never gave me a reason to doubt him, never raised his voice, never looked at another woman. He came home when he said he would, asked how my day was, made sure the car had gas and the fridge had milk. I remember thinking on our first anniversary that I should feel more, that there should be some warmth swelling in my chest, some quiet joy when I looked across the table at him. But all I felt was relief, that I hadn't made a mistake so big it ruined my life, that I'd landed somewhere safe, that no one was asking why I was still single. And that's when I realized how low my bar had become, not because of him, but because of me. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped believing that I could be wanted for who I was instead of what I offered. I measured my worth in how well I filled a space, how little I asked for, how agreeable I could be. And he liked that about me. He liked my calm, my quiet. He said I was easy to love. I smiled when he said that. But inside, something winced, because I knew that being easy to love wasn't the same as being fully seen. It meant I didn't cause trouble, didn't need too much, didn't shake the foundation. I fit into his life like a well-folded shirt in a drawer, neat, familiar, unremarkable. And I let myself become that. I performed the role so well that even I forgot it was a performance. Dinner on time, vacations booked, hugs when needed, sex out of routine more than desire. I did everything a good wife was supposed to do, and still, there was this quiet distance between us. A distance I built, not with cruelty, just with absence. I was there, but never all the way. And the scariest part is, he never noticed. Or maybe he did, and just didn't want to see it, because he needed me to be the kind of woman who would stay. And I needed to be needed enough to pretend I wanted to. I thought I'd learn to love him eventually. I truly believed that. I told myself love could be built, like furniture, piece by piece, with the right tools and enough patience. I studied his habits, memorized his routines, tried to find poetry in his predictability. Sometimes I'd watch him brush his teeth or sort the recycling and think, this should be enough. This is what people mean by partnership. But I never felt that pull in my chest, never reached for him out of instinct. Every kiss felt rehearsed, every touch polite. And over time, I stopped trying to feel anything deeper. I just folded myself into the shape of a woman who had chosen well. I learned what made him laugh, what foods he liked, how to keep the peace. We never fought. People said we were lucky for that, but there was no heat, not even in anger, just two people orbiting the same quiet center. And the loneliest part of all was knowing that he was content. He loved me. In his eyes, we had made it. He'd call me his person in front of friends, squeeze my hand in movie theaters, bring home flowers without a reason. And every time I smiled and said thank you. I smiled so much I forgot what my face looked like at rest. I kept hoping something would click, that one morning I'd wake up beside him and feel that elusive certainty. But it never came. I felt admiration. I felt respect. I felt gratitude, but not love. Not the kind that stirs you, not the kind that anchors you. I spent years mistaking stillness for peace, years convincing myself that security was the same as connection. And when I couldn't tell the difference anymore, I knew I'd lost something I couldn't name. There was a moment, I don't even remember the date, when I looked across the dinner table and realized I didn't know who I would be without this marriage. Not because it fulfilled me, but because I had built my entire identity around it, around being a wife, around being his wife. And that scared me more than anything else had. Not the emptiness, not the pretending, but the fact that I had made myself so small, so quiet, that even I couldn't hear what I wanted anymore. I don't think he ever asked, not out of selfishness, just assumption. He assumed my silence meant satisfaction. My presence meant agreement. That's how we both functioned. Two people upholding a life we never questioned, because questioning would have meant unraveling. And we were too far in for that. People said we were lucky. They envied our stability. They called us a strong couple. I let them. Because what could I say? That I built a life not from love, but from fear. That I stayed because I didn't know how to leave something that wasn't bad, just hollow. That I feared being alone more than I feared being invisible. Those aren't things you say at dinner parties. Those are the truths you bury under well-folded linens and holiday traditions. And every time I set the table, every time I lit the candles and served the wine and asked about his day, I was performing a role I had written for myself, one where my silence was mistaken for peace. And his kindness was enough to justify the absence of everything else. I don't blame him. He loved the version of me I presented, and I kept presenting her because I was afraid he wouldn't love the rest. Sometimes I wonder who I could have become if I hadn't been so afraid. Not in a dramatic sense, not some bold, transformed woman with a new name and a new life, but just someone more honest, someone less shaped by other people's expectations. I remember lying awake beside him at night, listening to his breathing and feeling like a guest in my own bed. He'd shift in his sleep, hand brushing mine, and I'd stay still, careful not to wake him, careful not to disturb the balance, because even that, even a single question, a single moment of truth, felt like too much risk. I had built something too fragile to shake, and the truth was never loud in me. It was quiet, like water seeping through floorboards, slowly warping the wood beneath. I still made him breakfast every Sunday, still kissed his cheek when he left for work, still laughed at stories I'd heard before, still wore the necklace he gave me on our 5th anniversary. I wasn't cruel. I didn't cheat. I didn't scream. I just disappeared, 1 inch at a time, not outwardly, not visibly, just beneath the surface. And he never noticed, or maybe he noticed and didn't want to ask, because we were fine. We were functional. We had photos on the mantle and matching towels and shared memories that looked like love from the outside. And that's what we both clung to, the outside. He'd bring me tea when I had headaches, rub my back without being asked, listen when I talked about work. He was a good man, a very good man. And I think that made it worse. Because when someone is good to you, when they love you, clearly and gently? How do you confess that you're not really there? How do you say, I don't feel this the way you do? That kind of confession isn't just betrayal, it's cruelty. So I never said it. I swallowed it again and again until silence became second nature, until even I started to believe that numbness was normal. We had a rhythm. People envied our lack of drama, but absence isn't peace, and numbness isn't love. I wish someone had told me that. I wish I had told myself, because there were moments, small ones, when the mask almost cracked. At weddings, when I saw couples look at each other with that unspoken tether between them. At cafes, when I'd watch a stranger reach for another's hand without thinking, just instinctively needing that connection. Or even in movies, when the camera would linger on a glance, a hesitation, a whisper, and something in my chest would pull tight, like a reminder of what I never let myself want. I'd blink it away, remind myself I had stability, loyalty, a shared life. I told myself that longing was immature, that real adults didn't chase feelings, they built structures, and I had a sturdy one. But love isn't structure, it's breath. And I hadn't taken a deep one in years. I kept shrinking year after year until there was barely enough of me left to miss, and no one noticed, because I was still smiling, still remembering birthdays, still buying the right gifts and asking the right questions. I was good, but not alive, not really. The older I got, the more expertly I performed. I became the kind of woman people pointed to with quiet approval, gracious, steady, unshakable. At gatherings, I was the one who remembered everyone's preferences, who refilled drinks without being asked, who folded her napkin neatly and laughed in the right places. And it's not that I hated it. It was easier than the truth, easier than saying, I don't belong in this life I built. Because by then, the performance wasn't just for others, it was for me too. I had lived so long inside that shell that I began mistaking it for skin. And what would I even be outside of it? A woman in her 50s, alone, uncertain, starting from nothing. That kind of honesty requires a courage I never had. So I told myself stories about sacrifice, about duty, about the quiet strength of choosing what's right over what's thrilling. I told myself I was lucky, that not everyone gets a partner who shows up, who stays, who tries. And I was right. He did try. He gave me everything he had, and still something in me recoiled from the closeness, not out of contempt, out of emptiness. I remember once, maybe 7 or 8 years into the marriage, he planned a trip, just the two of us. A little cabin near the lake, no phones, no work, just quiet. He was so proud of the surprise. He thought it would reconnect us. And I smiled, nodded, packed the bags. But I remember standing in that kitchen with the wood walls and the soft light and feeling trapped, not by him, by the intimacy, by the expectation that I'd lean into something that had never been there. He reached for my hand as we watched the water, and all I could think was, what does he see when he looks at me like that? Because whatever it wasn't me. It was the version of me I'd spent years perfecting, agreeable, grateful, always present, but never fully revealed. And that's what he loved, not out of ignorance, but because he wanted something whole, and I wanted to seem whole more than I wanted to be it. Over time, we stopped trying. Not in big ways, no fights, no distance we could name, just a quiet settling into habit. We watched the same shows, slept on the same sides, said goodnight at the same time, but nothing in us moved anymore. We became like furniture in each other's lives, always there, never noticed. And that's the part no one talks about, that you can drown in routine just as easily as in chaos. That comfort, when hollow, becomes its own kind of suffocation. I used to lie awake and imagine what it would feel like to be wanted, not for what I provide, not for how easy I am to live with, but for the shape of my thoughts, the edge of my voice, the weight of my being. But I buried those fantasies in politeness, smiled through the ache, and told myself that longing was selfish, that I had made my choice, and choices come with silence. There came a point when the silence grew so thick it stopped feeling like something between us and started feeling like something inside me. It didn't arrive suddenly. It thickened over years, like dust settling in corners you don't notice, until one day you touch the surface and leave a clean fingerprint. I'd wake in the mornings before him and lie still, listening to the soft hum of the refrigerator, the gentle rhythm of his breathing, and feel nothing shift in me. No warmth, no anticipation, just the familiar weight of another day, shaped exactly like the one before it. And I think that's when the fear changed. At the beginning, I'd married him because I was afraid of being alone, but somewhere along the line, I became afraid of what would happen if I admitted the truth, that I was alone anyway, even with someone sleeping inches from me. That kind of loneliness is sharp in a way solitude never is. It makes you question your own instincts, your own capacity to feel. I'd watch friends fall in love for the second or third time, eyes glowing with that unmistakable spark, and I'd smile and congratulate them while something cold twisted quietly under my ribs. Not jealousy, recognition. Recognition that I had never felt what they were describing, not even once, not even when I said I do. I remember one night we had guests over, two couples we'd known for years. They sat in our living room drinking wine, laughing, telling stories from vacations and anniversaries. At one point, someone said, half teasing, half sincere, "You two are the most stable couple we know. What's your secret?" Everyone turned to look at me, and I felt a moment of pure, cold panic because I didn't have an answer that wasn't a lie. He chuckled and said something about trust and patience, and everyone laughed, but I felt my throat tighten. I excused myself to the kitchen, stood by the sink, and realized with a kind of quiet horror that I had built a life so convincing that even I had forgotten to question it. I washed the same dish 3 times just to keep my hands busy. When I returned, they had moved on to another topic, and I slipped back into my chair, into my role, into the version of myself they all expected to see. I think that's when it hit me, not as a dramatic revelation, but as a slow, steady truth settling into place. I hadn't married a man. I'd married an escape, an exit from the terror of being unwanted, unnoticed, unclaimed. And in doing so, I locked myself into a story where I never truly belonged. Years kept passing. He grew softer. I grew quieter. We aged side by side like 2 trees planted close but never touching roots. And all the while, the truth grew heavier inside me, a truth I couldn't voice without breaking everything we'd built, a life that looked whole from the outside, tidy and respectable. But respectability is a thin blanket in the cold. And no matter how tightly I wrapped myself in it, the chill of what I'd chosen always found its way through. I don't resent him for loving me, and I don't resent myself for wanting to be loved. But wanting to be chosen is not the same as choosing. And fear, no matter how gently it disguises itself, is still fear. I built decades of my life on it, and now I live with the quiet consequence of that choice. A house full of memories I never felt fully present in, and a marriage that kept me warm but never lit a single flame inside me. I won't tell him. I never will. There's no dignity in saying it now, no healing in dragging it into the open after all these years. What would I even be asking for? Forgiveness? Understanding? It's too late for either. He still wakes before me most mornings, makes coffee for 2, leaves the mug by my side of the bed like he always has. He still looks at me with the same quiet affection, still rests his hand on the small of my back when we walk through crowded rooms. And I still smile, I still thank him, I still play the part. But inside, something has finally stilled, not because it resolved, because it stopped trying. I used to think silence was mercy, that holding it all in was some form of kindness, a way of protecting the life we built. But now I see it for what it is, a kind of disappearance. Slow, painless, invisible, and irreversible. I don't ask for anything anymore, not even from myself. I just move through the days, careful not to disturb what's settled. I fold laundry, water plants, reply to texts with little hearts and smiley faces. No one would guess there's a woman underneath all this stillness who never once chose the life she ended up living. Not out of love, but out of fear of not being chosen at all. That's the part no one prepares you for. That fear ages with you. It softens its voice, but not its grip. It doesn't rage. It lingers, quietly, in the background, like an echo you forgot the origin of. Sometimes I walk through the house and touch things I've owned for decades. The chipped mug, the threadbare sweater, the photo frames with dust in the corners. And I wonder if they ever felt like mine, or if they were just props in a life I never fully stepped into. There's a weight to pretending that no one warns you about, a weight that grows heavier not because it changes, but because you do. Because there comes a day when you realize the years you traded for comfort can't be returned, that the fear you once thought temporary was actually the foundation, that you never lived past it, you just built around it. I don't expect anyone to understand. I don't even expect to be remembered. Maybe one day someone will sort through my things and say I seemed happy. Maybe they'll call me devoted. Maybe they'll say I was lucky. I won't be there to correct them. And maybe that's for the best, because this isn't a story that ends in revelation or redemption. It ends in quiet, in the soft closing of a door that was never fully open. I'm not here to offer lessons. I'm not asking to be seen. I'm just finally speaking aloud the one truth I buried deepest, the one I never dared let touch the light until now. I didn't marry him because I loved him. I married him because I was afraid to be alone. And I stayed because I convinced myself that fear, when dressed as devotion, could pass for love. If you're still listening, it means something in you recognized that sentence before I finished it. That's all. That's enough. I've carried the silence long enough. Now it can live here, outside of me, in the open. I don't need to be forgiven. I just needed to be honest. Once.